Hi gang, Rob here. It is the evening of 16 July 2018, coming to you with a knife review, fixed blade variety. Yeah, how about that? We have something very, very special for you tonight. In front of you lies a knife made by one Paul MacDuff. Now, those of you who follow this channel closely know exactly who that is. If you saw my June grinding video from Bark River Knives in Escanaba, Michigan, you know exactly who Paul MacDuff is. He is a 16-year-old knife maker from eastern Washington State who, with his father, traveled, I don't know, about 2,000 miles to Escanaba last month to try to refine his craft of fixed blade knife making by participating in the grind-in. He got to meet Mike Stewart, Jim Stewart, Jacqueline Stewart Troutman, and the whole Bark River crew, and he made a Bark River Rogue Bowie all by himself. All by himself. Not only did he make it himself, he made it beautifully by himself and won the Best Youth Knife Award. And guys, you couldn't tell it from a Skittles ground Rogue Bowie. I mean, it was beautiful, just beautiful. So what we're looking at tonight is knife number 10, custom fixed blade number 10 in the career of Paul MacDuff. Here it is. Sort of a modified sheep's foot profile. I'm calling it the Mini Muck because of its blade shape. Sort of a deep sheep's foot with a little bit of belly. Absolutely a delicious camp knife, especially for food prep, maybe a little bit of utility, even a little light bushcraft, I think. Blade length on the Mini Muck is 3 3/4 inches. Handle length is 4 inches. Let me get this certificate of authenticity out of the way so we get a little bit better lighting for this handle, which is crafted of canvas micarta, black canvas for the bolsters, and natural canvas for the bulk of the handle. And then we're finished off with some carbon fiber liners. Right, smart looking, don't you think? Let's just take a look at how far Paul has come in 10 knives. I just happen to have one of his first 3, which he kind of patterned after the Bark River Mini Aurora, although it is, I'm sorry, the Mini Bushcrafter. But instead of being a Scandi or a Scandi Vex, Paul did his in a full flat grind. He did a hand-rubbed satin, a little blotchy on this one. On the new knives, he's doing a very fine grinder satin. He may be finishing this off by hand. I think maybe it might behoove Paul to go to a buffer with some satin glow compound, much like the production knives knife makers like Bark River use. Give you a little more consistent finish. But check out the hafting. Check out the progress in the hafting. This small EDC blade from Paul is done in Brazilian cherry wood. But just look. Don't know if the camera picks this up, but the tang is a little proud, both in the belly and on the spine, which is sort of a common thing that has to be avoided because the steel is so much harder than the wood. Obviously, the finish much better on the new knife. If you'll remember, when Paul made his first 3 knives, he called and asked me to critique them, and the hafting was the one area I really pointed out to him that could be better. Man, look at the difference. Look at the difference in a career of 10 knives. Yeah. So this Mini Muck has just exactly the same blade length as a Bark River Gunny Hunter, although for much thinner stock. I think this is 120 thousandths D2, and the handle much shorter, of course, but still a full-size handle. Easy to get 4 fingers on. perfectly ground. I want you to pay special attention to the width of my secondary bevel, which is ground at 17 degrees per side. It is dead consistent between 21 and 22 thousandths behind the edge, tip to hilt. Just beautifully done. And when you make a full flat grind, about an inch high, terminating at just over 20 thousandths, you get some pretty good slicing performance, don't you think? You put it through that paper with some velocity, you can barely hear it. Paul is coming along quite nicely. I love the fact that he continues to use thin stock, full height flat grinds, and he's terminating to very thin edges. As you guys have heard me say before, looking at custom fixed blades or custom knives in general, the mistake that most young makers make is that they have this chunky syndrome. Not so Mr. MacDuff. He makes knives that cut. And frankly, I know he's worked on his heat treat with this D2 extensively. This is about 58 Rockwell. His edge holding's phenomenal. I've had this little knife for almost a year now, and I've sharpened all Paul's knives. He sends them to me not sharpened, and then I sharpen them and sell them on the channel up to this point. So this one, yeah, maybe, gosh, 11 months old, other than a little stropping. Doesn't quite want to go. It cuts straight okay. It's a little dull for doing S curves. Still almost push cuts. Pretty good. Not a knife I've carried daily for 11 months, but it's got a fair amount of use on it. So he knows what he's doing with his heat treat. Even better on the D2, I'll bet you. That was a 1095 knife that you just saw. So 16 years old, homeschooled high schooler, probably going to graduate early, probably going to have his pick of colleges. Not sure what he wants to do, but man, wouldn't it be great, knife guys, if we could help support this young maker through college? I think it would. Paul, you might want to look at some acid etching, because although it's a beautiful little maker's mark, I think you could do a little bit better than an electric engraver. But guys, it's a knife, and man, is it a nice knife. If you saw my knife sale last week, you know that this knife is in it, and it's still here. I was pretty doggone sure this would be the first one sold. It's the most original design of the three that he sent me, and I think it's the most nicely finished of the three that he sent me, and probably, I don't know, it's a great utility blade shape. The other two knives, I'll sort of roll in some footage for you now. One called the Colt, which is sort of a little equal length, equal shape blade and handle. Blade and handle flipped 180 degrees in gorgeous natural micarta, canvas micarta with brass pins. That one was in 1095 steel. That thing sold in a heartbeat for 125 bucks. Then the next knife, it was a mini Puko with a pretty nice hidden tang composite handle that consisted of Brazilian rosewood, some leather washers, so a deer antler washer, and a crushed penny, of all things, yeah. And a little black canvas micarta washer in the front. That knife sold in a heartbeat for 145 bucks. It was also in D2. This one I also priced for Paul at $145 with an edge by yours truly, the TheApostleP Knife Service. I thought the handle was the most nicely done. I thought the blade was the best ground of the three, and here it still sits. So if you're watching this video remotely in a timely fashion, you might want to click over to this week's knife sale and see if it's still available and grab it. Believe me, guys, This is one young maker that deserves our support. We need to encourage him and watch him grow as a maker. This knife does come in a black leather pancake style sheath that is completely ambidextrous. A vertical carry sheath. You can also set up for cross draw by using the middle slot. And the blade's going to fit in it thusly. Probably want to use a lanyard because not much of a horn on the end of that handle to extract that blade. Yeah, it's 145 bucks, and I believe completely well worth it. Gosh, can you even buy a Bradford Guardian 3 for that? And frankly, you got a lot more knife. Yeah. I like to keep track of Paul. Got to meet him for the first time at the Grind-In in June, and man, what an impressive young man. Go back and watch that video, guys. He's a pretty laid back, pretty dialed in young man. Our country is in good hands if there are more of him out there. Thought you'd like to see it, and stay tuned on this channel for new offerings from Paul MacDuff. I think you're going to be impressed. That's all for this one. Grace to you and peace, my friends, from God our Father and the Lord Jesus Christ. And remember, the Word and this here Paul MacDuff mini muck are sharp.